You're on.
Welcome to the August 26, 2001 Capital Investment Committee meeting. We will have the roll call. Alderman Blanton.
Here.
Alderman Berger.
Here.
Chair Ears. All right, we'll have the minutes, approval or of the
I
minutes.
think you have to.
Sure, motion to approve.
You- Motion to approve.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Oh, second. I was just waiting for you to call Dana.
Okay, all right.
And he's
Uh,
not here. That's fine. I'm behind. Sorry.
We've had a
Second.
motion and second. Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Here.
Chair, yes. Thank you. All right, new business, consideration to grant sewer availability for 4032 Clovercroft Road, map 079, parcel 05600. Michelle,
Hi there. Good afternoon. So this is a sewer availability on Clovercroft. She wants to, the applicant would like to expand her front porch, but the county is indicating it's too close to the septic system. So we provided her a cost estimate to provide her sewer availability. She's in agreement with it. She is requesting approval. And we're obviously recommending approval provided the execution of the annexation agreement, the standard annexation and availability agreement.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, question. I see here on the map, it looks like it's located next to the church that's being built. Is it the last house to the west of where the church is being built? Church is being built behind that pond.
Yes, I believe so.
So where is the sewer? Where's the sewer? Because I know it's across the street, and we've hooked on to the church, the Franklin Christian Church, it's building behind the pond there. I don't think you have the map up on the screen, or I'd
Yeah,
point
we're having
to
a
it.
screen issue, so.
Yeah.
you'd have to
Okay,
look on
but we
your
have it on
computers.
ours. So
This-
I see the red box. And
Yeah,
then
this-
you've got an arrow pointed next to it, so which side is it?
The sewer is that is that brownish line.
Right.
On the other side of the road. So they would have a service that would extend underneath the road.
Is the site the box or where the arrow is pointing?
It's the box.
Okay.
I think that's just a map mistake or
Okay.
Yeah,
map error.
that's what I was confused
Okay,
about.
just making sure. Look at it.
Yeah.
So, but, where the box is, that is still in the county, and where the church is, they're still in the county, and they're not annexing in until we request them to annex in, then they have to annex in. Because we gave them sewer.
Yeah, contingent upon an annexation agreement, yes, that we require for all availabilities.
Right.
Issued within the county,
So
yes.
all of that around them still is county then, I don't see any city.
There are a couple more sporadic properties down Clovercroft that we just, we granted availability for, 4022, 4024.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I didn't see anything there that's actually city, so I'm okay.
Okay.
I just want to make
All
sure.
right. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. All right, item 3. Consideration to grant sewer availability for 114 Gilbert Drive, map 10, 106H, parcel 08300.
So this is an availability that's along the alignment of the Henpeck Interceptor. A TAP was created for this property when that construction was done. Because they're in the county, they're just going through the process of applying for availability. We recommend approval and the applicant wants.
Is it right there close by?
Yes.
Yeah, it's right there.
I'll move for approval and thank you for the maps, Michelle.
Yes.
With
Second.
aerials, as
We
Aaron.
thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
chair votes yes. All right, item 4, to deny sewer availability for 117 Gilbert Drive, map 106H, parcel 08600.
So this is on the south side of Gilbert Drive. So the Henpeck Interceptor runs behind the houses on the north side of Gilbert Drive, you can see. So if we were to give availability to this house, they would have to connect through, underneath the road and through another property. So this is the area that we're studying. We talked about this the last time. We have a consultant looking at this, and we actually met with them last week. We have a preliminary layout of the sewer that would provide gravity to this house. So the applicant is requesting denial. We're recommending denial just because it's not quite the right time, the timing of it yet.
Well, why?
Thank you. Go ahead and ask that. Why would they deny something that's not being offered?
No, but why is it that she's requesting denial?
Because they're remodeling their home, and they can't remodel their home. Williamson County is making them seek availability from us before they can give them the permit to remodel their home.
Very important. Yep.
My
Got it.
apologies for missing that part.
But the county will let them do it
If we deny them
if we
availability.
deny it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion for denial?
So moved.
Second, sorry.
All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Yes.
Everybody votes yes. Thank you.
I think Angie wants you to do roll call.
What?
She wants you to do a roll call vote.
Sorry. Alderman Blanton?
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Berger?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Item 5, consideration to deny sewer availability for 9409 Clovercroft Road, map 081A, parcel 00200.
So this is currently an empty lot. So this is outside the city limits, inside the UGB. The applicant wants to build a single-family home. Serving this property would kind of require some costly extensions of the sewer for just this one property. The applicant is requesting denial, and the department is recommending denial.
They're requesting denial.
So in order to build their home, Williamson County is requesting an official denial from us to allow them, to give them the septic availability.
All right, is there a motion to deny?
So move.
Second.
Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Alderman Berger?
Yes.
Chair, yes. Item 6. Consideration to deny sewer availability for 1107 Holly Hill Drive, map 089P, parcel 04400.
So this is another property that's outside the city limits in the Red Wing subdivision, so just south on Lewisburg Pike. This applicant would like to sell their home. It's an internal family purchase home, but they are proposing a low-pressure sewer that would extend across multiple property lines. It would actually be a service into another service that they've already proposed, so we don't recommend that in municipal code. It violates municipal code. So in the gravity study that we're having with the consultant we just talked about, shows a gravity option for this area. So this is a little bit downstream from the property that you all approved last month, I believe it was,
Yeah.
or 2 months ago, I don't exactly remember. So this is the same kind of, we don't recommend it because it's, a gravity option was not considered first. So we're recommending denial. But if the board chooses to recommend approval, then we would like to have the same options for for sewer availability.
You would say that again, if we choose.
So if the board chooses to give them availability, to provide them availability, the department would like to request that we have the same contingencies as far as participating in any sort of
Right.
special assessment district or future when we determine the exact sewer layout for that more holistic neighborhood. So we talked, that's why we're doing this separate consultant study.
Are they amenable to those conditions?
Yes.
And the other sewer the other availability we granted was a grinder pump as well.
It was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
this would obviously be a private system, so the city would not be responsible for any of this until it would connect to the main. Because they're outside the city, when they connect to our city's system, that municipal code applies to them. So this is a grinder pump service connecting into a
Right.
grinder pump service, which is not what we would recommend.
and so once the study shows that we do gravity sewer or gravity sewer is provided, then they have the same documentation that we did before, that they come online and participate.
Within so
Yeah.
many years,
Yeah.
contingent
All
upon,
right.
they would have to, buy into
Sure.
that special
So-
assessment. They already have,
Yeah,
the execution of an annexation agreement and availability agreement,
Okay.
for us to make that tap.
so that all stays the same? gets
Correct,
signed.
yes.
Okay. I recommend for approval.
Second,
All right. Alderman Blanton,
yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Item 7, consideration of draft CFO contract number 2021-0239, a joint funding agreement between the U.S. Geological Survey, Lower Mississippi Gulf Water Science Center, and the City of Franklin. Gracious, that's a mouthful.
So this is a contract for the existing water quality monitors that we have in the Harpeth River. So engineering used to have this project, or this contract used to come out of their budget. Since it's our monitors we use, we've taken it over. So this is just simply an extension of that for this next year. So we have 2 monitors at the USGS that they provide maintenance on and that they monitor, and then that data gets uploaded to their website, which the water department uses to pull to pull water from the Harpeth River.
And
All right.
engage, and
Do
I
you want
move
a
for
motion
approval.
for that?
Yeah, move for approval.
Second,
Just a question, when's your contract start? What dates? I mean, does it go on a cycle of our,
I think it's their fiscal years are a little bit different. I think their fiscal year is October 1st
Oh, okay.
to September 30th. So that's why it's a little bit off from ours. In future years, we've asked for it a little bit earlier because it takes some time to get through our approval process.
so this 46,000, do we renew that every year then? Or is there a way that we could renew it for like a 3-year period at a lower cost? Or is there anything available like that?
We've actually asked that question to USGS to kind of simplify this process of going every year. They don't have other municipalities that ask that question, but they're going to research that and get back to us. So we do that on a lot of other contracts as well. Like we'll do a 5-year term and it's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, I would think so.
So-
Did you just recently ask them this and they were going to get back to you, this year?
Yeah, we did. When we got this contract and started working through the law approved, process and that sort of stuff, we asked that to them. So I don't know that we'll get it in place for this year, but certainly, hopefully, we'll have it, if it exists, to have it in place for next year.
All right, thanks.
Where is their headquarters?
So the Nashville office it's in
City.
Grassmere by the zoo. It's kind of on the western side of the zoo. I can't think of what that road
right.
is called.
Do they have those located in all cities?
They're on a lot of rivers within the state of Tennessee, yeah. So the Nashville office maintains these 2. So they send people to, calibrate them every so many months. When they get debris on them after big rainfall events, they'll send folks out to clean them.
Is this connected with the Cumberland River, not the Harpeth?
These are 2 monitors on the Harpeth River. Yes,
Oh, this is the Harpeth.
yes. So one of them is located on the golf course, on the Harpeth in the Forest Crossing Golf Course area. And that monitor we use to provide data on what we can pull as far as water from the Harpeth
Okay.
River.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Even though it didn't come up. Thank you.
And I'm restarting.
Okay. Item 8, consideration of ordinance 2021-37, an ordinance to establish a school zone on Everbright Avenue.
In
Yes,
20,
sir.
yes, ma'am, in July of this year, we received a request from Renaissance High School to establish a school zone on Everbright between Columbia Avenue and Academy Street. So our Traffic Operations Center has evaluated that and agreed to go ahead and bring that ordinance forward to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and we're requesting a recommendation to move that forward.
Does that change the speed?
It will before school and after school, just directly before and after school, like any other school zone.
Okay,
But is it gonna be signaled like with a,
It would not initially. The request was just to establish a school zone, so it would just be a standard sign with hours below it, which is a standard option that's
that's
available
great,
to
the
us.
school's not in session 12 months a year though,
Yes, that's correct.
so.
all right, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second with comment.
All right, comment.
I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's, if the signage could be a little bit different, just because of the fact, I guess none of the other school zones are they?
There
They
are
don't say during school days.
there are different options available to us. Like one of them are when children are present. So there are different options, and the reason for putting that plaque below there with the hours on there is to specifically
Sure.
tell drivers when they're there.
Yeah.
Some school zones you will see just the plaque that says when children are present, which is kind of vague. So the intent, I mean, I do get what you're saying there, is during the summer, people are gonna wonder whether it's, are we supposed to be slowing down or not? And the request was just to establish the school zone. So we were starting with the simpler, more cost-effective approach. And if we need something additional, we would come back to the board and request the additional funding for that.
And I think it's a great start, because I know that we're understaffed when it comes to school patrol. So if this is what we can do to help them as
Yeah,
a sign,
no
it's a
kidding.
great first step. So, I mean, I support it. I'm just like, it's an interesting location and it's an interesting solution, but I get it, so.
I just wonder on that street, are there complaints of speeding?
Adam is here with us. I don't know if there's specific complaints of speeding, but if there's a request from Leesman County Schools to
It's
establish a
just
school
such
zone
a
there.
short little street that,
It is.
I just wondered.
Have the neighbors been notified?
No, they have not.
I would like probably that to happen first.
We can do that. We can put signs in the area.
Yeah, or
That'd be
even a
great.
letter. There's probably maybe 4 to 5 homeowners that are in that immediate street. I think it'd be great for them to be told about it before we put a sign on their street.
It won't be a large sign, will it?
It'll be about the size of a speed limit sign, maybe a little bit larger than that, but no.
I just
That
think
that was
that's a
why we
courtesy.
started also with that,
Yeah.
is it's less obtrusive. Typically, if you put a flasher sign up, especially in a residential area, it's much larger, requires a large foundation. Something like this just requires a simple post that goes in the ground.
Yeah, that's good.
So is this something that BOMA's got to vote on in consent, or what? How does this, where does this
No,
go next?
If it receives, in the past, the direction from law, and I'm certainly an engineer, so I won't, I'm certainly not the know-all, end-all of law, but what they have told me in the past is that engineering-style items or traffic items, once they receive a positive recommendation from this committee, they would go on the consent items of consent.
If you vote
Unless you
for-
have further direction from this committee. Now, you
Yeah.
can direct it to go where you want it to
Yeah,
go.
the rule is if you vote it, typically, if you vote it unanimously here, it goes on consent. But there are times you say, well, the whole board ought to weigh in on this, and we put it on
And
the
it's
work
not
session.
even that. I think that the homeowners should hear about it from us before There's a
We can
speed
certainly
limit
do a
change on their
notice and
street.
not put it on consent until they've had that for some period of time. I wouldn't think this would be terribly surprising to them,
No, I
but
don't
I think
think
it's
so
good to
either.
give them a heads up,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. So if you
They've
could just
lived
let
with the
them know.
school for long enough to get used to it, you know, they. All right, motion? Did we have a motion
Yes,
already?
ma'am.
We've already had a motion and a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
and Chair, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Number 9, consideration of City of Franklin contract number 2021-0047, a lease agreement between the City of Franklin and Williamson County Parks and Recreation Department for use of Fieldstone Park.
Thank you, Chair. So before you is an agreement, we've had an agreement with Williamson County Parks and Recreation since 1988 when this park came on board with the construction of Fieldstone subdivision. And the lease before you today is for 3 years. However, usually I do a 5 to 10 year lease. But what Williamson County Parks and Recreation is seeing, as well as the City of Franklin, is sometimes trends kind of change over the years, and they program adult softball on the property. And so they've seen a decline in that program, but they've also gained a lot of other property, just as we have, and they're doing other programs. And so the goal is that we'll still work together over the next 3 years to kind of evaluate the program, but we are also going to allow Franklin Special School District, the girls softball team, as we're going into construction for the Franklin Special School with the baseball and the softball fields. We're going to house the baseball program at Liberty Park and Jim Warren as much as we can, and the girls softball at Fieldstone. And we need room for practice space. So we're all seeing different changes, but this lease before you is to continue the program at least for 3 years, so they've got time to kind of evaluate. And then we'll also work together with the senior games that the state has. That's a definite, and then tournaments on the weekends.
Move for approval.
Did you have a?
Second.
Oh, you moved for,
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
did you have something you wanted to say? I thought you
Good.
raised your hand, all right. Alderman Blanton.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10, status update on the Old Paytonsville Road and Long Lane Bridge and Connector Project.
So as you know, this was one of the board's #1 priority projects to get completed. And we're right now in the midst of the design phase of it, and we have some items we want to update the board on and get your feedback. And if you'll remember, TDOT built a lot of the piers in the medians of I-65 during that project, which honestly saved us a tremendous amount of trouble and money by doing that, so we don't have to actually go out there and shut I-65 down and do rolling roadblocks. Well, what the first exhibit and what we're going to do is present you 3 options, and we've been struggling a little bit with it. I'll tell you that we've engaged both north and south property owners, and I'll share that opinion with you here in a second. So this is the first option, and we're really comparing a base cost, which is what we originally presented to you, and each option then is the additional cost going above that. So with the original design, we didn't necessarily plan to have a huge turn lane into the property to the north, which is the Baskin property. We all know that property is going to develop. I don't know if it's going to be next year or 20 years down the road, but it will one day develop, I imagine. And so we wanted to at least put a minor turn lane in for them to get in and out of their property in the interim. And so the design shown there in front of you right there is about $83,000 in additional construction costs to extend the deck and the superstructure underneath the bridge slightly to be able to enhance it and get a turn lane. Unfortunately, that wasn't something we thought of back when those piers were put in. And then and we're looking at the right-of-way cost comparison too. And in this one, it's about $2.57 million for a total of about $2.65 million for this option. The additional cost as it relates to the original project truly is about $83,000 to expand that deck. So not a huge cost in the big scheme of things.
So
We go to-
you're talking that portion up there in the blue and the green, that's the expansion itself, or is just on the side?
It's the transitions for the left turn lane, and so it's really the bridge deck and right there at that, where the cursor is.
If we were to have an exhibit, and unfortunately we don't have a good colored exhibit that showed between the two, the original and this, if we were to flash those between the two, it would be almost negligible. It would be hard to tell the difference. So what happens in this particular option versus the original, what we had designed, is really you're just modifying the superstructure, the actual bridge deck itself, and widening it a little bit, and the approach of the bridge, not the actual piers themselves, just to allow for this on the very end, the actual turn lane itself to be a little bit longer, not a significant length, but a little bit longer. So what you end up with is the ability to store a few cars there versus the original design probably could have stored 3 cars max left turn length off the bridge. This can probably store 4, 5 max.
So you're
it's
talking
not
the turn lane to coming
to go
off?
north, to go north. If you were to come across from Lewisburg Pike on the connector bridge and then to turn into the Baskin property, if it were to develop in the future, this would allow you to get a left turn lane to the north if this northern leg were to develop. So the reason we didn't take that into account in the future is at the time there was really nothing there, and there was
there?
really no intent to develop
Right
at the
there?
time when we first talked about this 10 years
Can
ago.
you point to that?
I can.
Yeah, Jonathan's pointing
Yeah.
with his mouse right
I-
there.
I'm looking at
So
that.
it's the additional left turn lane going into the Baskin property we're making it a
For
little
this
bit
left
wider
turn
in this
lane.
option.
Okay,
That's
That's what I was looking at,
in
but it
essence,
was-
that's all it is, that left turn lane right there.
all right.
But really, you're making a new road there.
We're making a new road, but what we're trying to do is not modify the piers that have already been constructed in
Yeah, I
965.
understand that, okay. I just didn't know we were gonna have all this improvement on the north side. I mean, I don't know what I thought. I guess I just thought the bridge would be over the interstate and then you just use what was there.
Yeah, generally what you're seeing in this option is what the plan was from the get-go, with the exception of a little bit on the side of on the end of the bridge being wider to accommodate a slightly longer turn lane.
Yeah,
That's it.
In essence, this is what you guys approved and blessed. We don't think this is the best option, though.
Okay.
Was
So-
that always the alignment of Long Lane?
That was always the alignment
Yes.
along.
Because it's cutting in a lot of that ag center property.
It's actually the,
Yeah,
it's
the
Mr.
only ag
Rambo
center
owns that
property is, yeah, just this corner right here. Really,
Hold on,
this
where
up
are
here
you?
is a separate property.
It is?
Yes, it is. It is a separate property owner.
Yeah,
Okay.
the guy's name to the south is Mr. Rambo. He owns the property. We've spoken with him. He wants to sell it,
Okay,
so he's interested, and we've also talked to the Baskins to the north.
okay,
The
thank
next
you.
option is, we wanted to look at an option of getting rid of those turn lanes, so we
Yep.
didn't have to modify
Good idea.
that bridge deck, because that obviously is expensive and it's a little more complicated. So before we brought you a roundabout option, we knew we had to have a discussion with the property owners. The Baskins to the north have indicated that they intend to develop that track. They don't know what they're gonna do with it, but they intend to do it, and they would like to do it in a mixed-use type development. It's not zoned for that today, so they understand they'd have to go through a long process to get it rezoned and development plan, et cetera. But they were in favor of this option because they knew it set them up for future development. You know, and we looked at the cost, this one, the difference in cost, it's a little bit additional construction cost, but the right-of-way cost is a little bit more at 2.8. So the total additional cost is about $2.9 million compared to option one. Again, Mr. Rambo, we talked to him today for the third or fourth time. He is interested in selling. He's actually interested in selling as soon as possible. We would like to try to get it done in the January timeframe, and we would love to try to get that settled with him before he decides to put this thing on the market for somebody else.
And the one thing to understand about these options, and Paul mentioned it, it's kind of mislabeled at the bottom. It says total additional cost. The right-of-way cost in general would have been there anyway. It's really not additional right-of-way cost because the alignments themselves, we would have been purchasing the right-of-way anyway. So as we bring these alignments back, we'll label that better because it's not really additional right-of-way. There's some additional, but it's not $2.5 million additional. So there is some additional right-of-way, but not that much.
But
This is
doesn't the
just a-
roundabout option change the access to his property quite a bit?
No, I mean, the roundabout option will give them better access because you don't need all those left turn lanes. It takes up a bigger footprint at the intersection itself, but then you don't need all the left turn lanes and the linear impact
Yeah.
to property.
Cuts it down.
Are we talking about Baskin that wants to do the development?
He's not brought anything forward, but the Baskins own the farm to the north.
Yeah. I mean,
And just north of
Who
that,
did you say
so-
wanted to sell it for future development?
Well, the Baskins to the north are interested in developing their property.
Got some-
They have told us that they plan to develop it. They don't have a time frame, but they plan to develop it. The guy to the south, who's sandwiched between the road and the ag center, is Mr. Rambo. He is interested in selling the property. He no longer wants to own it. He had plans to put a boat thing there, some type
Yeah.
of store there, and he's no longer planning to do that anymore.
So it may be, something we may come to you on a separate time is about expediting the acquisition of that property needed for this. Because we have a willing
actually,
seller.
what we're doing
And
is-
there's some timing that might
Need
be
it.
good to do it sooner than later.
That's right. Cheaper.
But knowing what we need is part of this discussion.
So the last option, which we don't recommend, but it is an option for consideration, would be to widen the entire bridge. Go in and modify piers and widen the bridge. It's the most expensive option at 3.7 million. In addition to this, if we go with the roundabout option, we know we're not gonna ever have to come back and signalize it. We believe that one day a signal is gonna be warranted there. So in the two non-roundabout options, there's also that additional cost of having to come back and put a signal at a later date of about $500,000. So to us,
Yep.
you know, with the property owner support that we're getting, the roundabout is the clear solution. But we didn't wanna make that decision without your approval. So what we wanted to do is, one, get your feedback, and then two, just bring this to a work session for the full board and have a resolution passed, kind of blessing
All
us
right,
to
are
proceed.
you talking about the first roundabout you showed us, or the
There's only
second?
one.
There's only one.
roundabout. It's option 2.
2 rather than 3, right?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
3 is expensive. Okay.
And what we did with this was, we struggled with this because we were trying to avoid any option that meant us having to adjust the piers that are already built in the interstate, because that was the
Right.
intent in us partnering with the state,
Yeah.
was to not have to get back in the interstate, which causes huge delays to traffic on the interstate itself. So we were trying to avoid that, knowing that we didn't really know what's gonna happen on those properties in the future.
Okay.
Bev?
Yeah, definitely don't like 3. 1's okay, but for the negligible cost, I mean, well, there's a little bit more cost, but it's not that much. I think it's more wise for 2. And you know, I'm all about moving traffic, so I think this allows traffic to continuously move. It also cuts out future expense for lights, for traffic light, which eventually one day will have to be there. So I think your option 2 is good, and it does cut down on taking more of his property out of there. So he retains more of his property. So I like that option as well for that gentleman, along with what it brings to the city.
Do you have any comments, Brandy?
I don't like roundabouts. I don't think that's a surprise. That's why Paul's smiling at me. I would love to move it forward and get, here at the public hearing, do we get to that far with this? So that the neighbors give their input, or no? Are we
Well-
trusting your report on their input?
We met with both of them extensively, so.
Well, I
it's up to
mean
you.
the owner, property owners, I mean the neighbors.
Oh, well, they want to do an early acquisition. We're not prepared to go to all the neighbors at this point.
I don't
We're
think you do.
focusing on, because of the decisions that need to be made with the bridge and the decisions that need to be made with this intersection,
Right.
we can't necessarily finalize right-of-way plans to get to that point.
We don't have enough known information to do all the property owners. We are gonna come back with a set of right-of-way plans and go to a public meeting and show the entire set of plans, so everybody can comment on them, but there are some decisions that are designed that do need to be made, so we
I-
can.
This is
Do you understand my
exactly,
point?
Yeah, let me ask you a question. If it was option 1 or 2, would you be able to move, that causes you to not need to address the supports in the middle of the highway. If we narrow it to 1 and 2, does that help you?
It helps us, but I know Mr. Rambo wants to sell that property,
Yeah.
so we're trying to do an early acquisition on it in an ideal
also-
world.
So, and that just affects how much of his property you need? Is that, we need something from him, this 1 or 2 affects how much we need? Or I'm trying to think of if we take it, is there a smaller step to break it into, get to that point, and then maybe engage a broader?
We can, I mean, it's gonna slow, it would, what it would do is just push the acquisition back
Okay.
substantially. And I know the owner's wanting to sell now, and we'd like to resolve it before he sells.
And we have an
it.
opportunity to
Yes.
use some funds that are in the
Yeah.
2017 bond sale
Yes, sir.
Correct.
to help
Yeah.
do that. So there's actually a financial benefit
Well,
to
I'm
do
just
that
not
too.
comfortable
The-
for the people that live out there. There's a lot of rooftops out there.
There is.
And
Why
I
are
think they deserve to have some
The,
input on what
The
they
good
prefer.
thing is you're not putting it into an existing road as much. This
Yeah,
is new.
that's it.
In a
That's
right.
greenfield
That's
area.
the very thing that
So
I've
where
been
you've
pushing.
run into this is when we've added it to a place that is already
Right.
Yeah.
more developed around it.
It's
So
not
I hear what you're
developed.
saying, and we're glad to get some input, but,
This is the beginning.
Yeah.
This is
the
doing it early.
beginning. And when you put this in
That's right.
first, it's like the walking trails. If the walking trails had been there first and before the
People wouldn't
houses,
bid.
the houses would have gone in, people would have
Right.
loved to lived on a walking trail. But when you put the
bother.
put the walking trail in after the houses,
Right.
nobody's gonna like it. The same with the roundabout. If you have something that big and that important,
That big.
first, then the development comes, there won't be a word said about it. But you put the houses there, and then you put the roundabout in, and
Yeah, people still like it.
that's what you got.
Well, but again, Margaret, there's people that have lived in Lad Park and Ellington
Well-
that have been over there for several years that have been traversing that horrible curve on Long Lane. So it's not like there's not already development going through that road.
Well,
it-
there
it-
is out, we're not gonna have any place in town that's.
It's not
gonna-
greenfield development is what I'm saying.
Well,
I understand what your point
yeah,
is,
there's a lot around it.
but I mean, we are
Well,
elected by the people to do their bidding, and I feel like this is usurping that. I don't have a problem with saying, yeah, we're gonna move forward with some, this is me, y'all do whatever
Yeah,
you want
yeah,
to.
yeah.
Move forward with some type of plan, and I don't want us to lose an opportunity financially, but I also think that we do neighborhood meetings for a reason, to garner input on how it affects people. This is a huge change. So,
Well-
that's my opinion.
That's good. That,
all right, and I hear you on your opinion, and I will, go take the total opposite end of that.
That's
one.
great.
Because we have a responsibility, well, I'm sorry, I don't believe we have a responsibility for every rooftop out there. If we had houses all around that area, right there, then that would be the people maybe you pull in, but you've got 2 landowners right there. Those are the people I want to hear from. I don't care, I'm sorry, that offends somebody, but I don't want to hear 50, 100 housing rooftops. I really don't want to hear that because we have to do, this is actually why I think we're elected, to make smart decisions for our city for long term. And if we are responsible, we're going to make decisions for the long-term health, safety, and welfare of our city. This is, people, what's the number one thing they talk about all the time? Traffic, traffic, traffic. Gridlock, gridlock, gridlock. This thing needs to be looked at, and we need to say, what does that look like in 30 to 40 years from now? 30 and 40 years, 20 years from now, 15 years from now, people go, oh boy, sitting at a traffic light. Again, that's why these things work so well in these areas, especially when you don't have something all around it. You have a green field right here. You have an opportunity to do this. Margaret, you're absolutely right. It's there, and if they want to come later. But all the people down the road, I think a lot of people are going to like it because they're going to be able to move. So that would be my argument for it. And, I know Brandy and I have the different opinions on that. But roundabouts aren't built all over the United States now and all over the world because they're not built because they don't work. They are built because they work. And they're built because they move traffic. They're built because they're economically feasible. Long-term maintenance, traffic lights, everything, there's a cost to that. So anyway, I would make a motion that we accept option 2, let it go to the board, and let them discuss it. That would be my motion.
Is that what you
Chair-
want?
Chair,
You
can I
wanna-
ask you a question, can I ask a question
Well,
first
sure.
before? I guess what I was trying to get at is if the one that requires the most right-of-way between 1 and 2 is 2,
Yes.
how much different is that? Is it substantially different?
No, it will not be substantially different, so 2 would be the way.
What I'm kind of getting at is if we know we don't want 3, and 1 and 2 are fairly close to one another, we have a sense of urgency to get the land. Could we get the land and have a little more time to work out exactly the roundabout, not roundabout piece? Would that still be viable for us?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about the opportunity to get the land that we need to do this work. And could we do that, then still have some opportunity for public input? I think the engineering is pretty strong with this, but, you know, could we do both? Get it timely and then have a chance for some input and then make the decision a little later down the line, but you have enough to get the property you need and know that you don't need to adjust the piers in I-65.
Yes, we could do that.
Before we talk about a motion, Mayor,
Well, I
do you
did
have
make a
anything
motion.
you want to say to that, about this?
I'm just over here boiling over wanting to say something. Well, I'm thinking back when we've been active out in that corridor, and there has been a lot of demand for moving forward on this long lane overpass. And I'd hate to see us do anything that would slow creation of that long lane overpass. I think Eric's got a good point there, is go ahead and get the land while we can. I would ask the question theoretically, what are you required by law to do as far as public notice if there was a public hearing? Is it just the properties within 500 feet?
We will generally only notify impacted property owners, however, we will put it on the website, but as far as written notification, and we put signs up, but as far as written notification, we only typically will invite impacted property owners.
And that's 2 properties.
Well, for this corridor, it'd probably be about 30, but
Oh, okay.
in this specific decision, it's 2 properties.
I think as fast as we can move forward, there's a lot of demand for this from the folks out there to go ahead and get Long Lane Overpass finished.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
If we can, yeah, I personally like the roundabout there. I hate that T intersection personally. I'd rather see the roundabout. It creates a better flow of traffic.
Safer,
Um,
much safer.
if we did this just to get the land, what kind of motion would it be
We will bring this
to
to a
do
work,
what Eric's talking about?
we will bring this forward in a resolution format, kind of authorizing us to proceed that way, is what I would assume.
All right, I'll revise my motion then. I'll revise my motion to say, send option 1 and 2 to the board so they can discuss and you can bring that forward. I mean, that's reasonable.
Yes.
Second.
All right.
One of the things we
Alderman-
did discuss today, sorry to interrupt there, but just for discussion purposes.
What,
one of the
Jonathan?
things One of the things we discussed today, excuse me, was bringing forward with that resolution potentially was something that authorized staff to do enter negotiations
Yes.
with the property owner, if that's something you
Yes.
choose, which is what Eric mentioned earlier, to allow that process to move
that
forward if you're
okay?
comfortable
Yeah,
with it.
I can make that
And-
part of
And
my
the reason
motion.
for that being is kind of to kind
Yeah.
of pull the whole conversation together was when we have more information known on the entire corridor, because the one big piece we're missing now is the utility piece, which does affect people's property and where we actually have to acquire additional easements and put things in people's yards. When we have all that information, when we can come back and do a full public meeting and actually have a bunch of known information for everybody to kind of digest everything at one time, that would be a thought that I would throw out there for consideration.
All
You
right.
have more known information, so we're not coming back and saying we know 50% of this, we don't know the remaining 50.
All right, so you just need.
All right, we
that's-
have.
That can be part of
We
the
have
motion.
a motion and a second. Alderman Blanton,
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. One thing about two, that intersection is pretty complete around, with the roundabout, whereas with one, you would have to really make another whole leg of that intersection, wouldn't you?
Yes, ma'am. What we would do with either one or with three is we would leave that as it is until the northern tract, the Baskin property, were to
Okay,
develop.
yeah,
And
okay.
and however that developed and whatever the needs are at that time.
He'd have to do it.
They would have to do it.
Oh,
And that's the
that's-
conversation we had with them as
Yeah.
well, is
That's
we
good.
would develop what our needs are now, and when they came in for development, whatever the bridge widening is at that time, whatever the road widening needs are, that would be on them to do at that time.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. All right. Item 11. Capital Projects Dashboard and Status Updates for August 2021. Anything you want to say?
The big item I'd offer is this week, this Wednesday, they started delivering the steel bridge beams for the Southeast Park entry bridge. So that was pretty interesting to watch those things come in. It's very cool to watch really large bridge beams come in. It's not something you see every day, and it's exciting to see those come in. So hopefully Lisa's made it out there. I'm sure she's made it out there to see it come in. So that's the big thing I would offer. It's pretty cool. You don't get to see
Were
that
you
very
out there
often. So
cheering them on, Lisa?
Some people take pictures of the children, I take pictures of steel beams.
she's moving over to the dark side now.
Thank you, engineering.
And we'll answer any questions you have.
Okay. You have any questions about this?
I do not.
Bev, question?
No, already been updated.
I won't ask my questions because I already know the answers.
Have we had any word on the widening of Liberty Pike? You know, at Carruthers to the college? Have you
No, but
talked
I
to
can-
South Star about that?
We have talked to them multiple times.
Call them up
I will
again.
follow up with them and see
Will you
where
please
they're
call
at
them
with it.
again?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Call Ralph Canals and ask him.
I know
I asked you to call
they're
him.
doing a little bit of redesign to bring the cost down. They're fighting utilities. And so sometimes you see
They've been
us,
fighting utilities for 3
Yeah.
years.
it's,
If Ralph tells me utilities one more time, I'm gonna literally get in my car and go to the utilities.
this is a good example of, we're fighting with utilities all the time, trying to figure out how to get them in and limit impacts. They're doing the same thing.
You know-
But they should be really close now.
Utilities cost us, waiting on utility, we gotta fix this at the state level somehow, because waiting on utilities is a huge, I mean, there's a reasonable amount of time, don't get me wrong, I understand that. But it's a huge disservice, and it's, I'm not gonna go on record and say it, it's just stealing the people's money. Because time is money, and when you wait 1, 2, and 3 years for these utilities to get their act together, guess what happens? Costs go up. And guess what? It costs the city money if we're doing something, it costs the developers more money if they're doing it. This is a racket. Something's going on here, and I'm so tired of that. And something has to give. And if we have to go to the state level and start talking to them, because we gotta get these utilities, they really don't care. You've got railroads that think, we know that, until I called them up that one day and it was sitting on the lady's desk, and it had already been approved for that signal at George Patton. It had been sitting on the desk because some guy took a vacation for a month. And so, but you know, I know utilities have to work out a lot of things. Don't get me wrong, I'm not negating the fact that they have work to do and they have, you know, to work with each other and to work with the city and to work with the developers. I get all that. But it just seems,
And then they have to rebuild some cities like Waverly that have disintegrated.
well, I'm talking about Franklin.
So I will say most of the utility providers that we work with are really good. Not all, but the majority of them are really good. And in this specific case, they're building the roadway over top of an existing exclusive easement, so the utility has full rights to that, not us. That's
know.
what's kind of complicated that one.
I know.
But they're all different, they're all
It's a
complicated.
nightmare.
Okay, do we have any more comments? Anybody else want to say
People for 4
anything?
years. Hmm?
Now's your time to vent. All
I
right.
thought we just did that.
We have. We did a great job of it, too.
Great.
All right, is there a motion for,
To adjourn, so moved.
whatever,
Second.
adjournment?
Bridge design.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Long lane over the overpass,
Chair.
long lines, the bridge
Yes.
design done.